hard copy bound books, which is delivered at your home, pan-India, within 4 to 6 days. Moreover, if you want to see the PDFs, the quality of content, you have to just WhatsApp at the given number and our team will send you the PDFs to see, analyze, and then you can go. Hello students, today I am going to teach you Joseph Conrad. You must be watching here on the board that the full name is Józef Teodor Konrad Korzeniowski, who was afterwards adopted the pen name of Joseph Conrad. So अगर आपसे कभी पूछा जाए, if somebody asks you, you can tell that this is the original name and Joseph Conrad is the pen name, and which was adopted as the pen name of Joseph Conrad. He was by nationality a Pole, P-O-L-E. By nationality, he was a Pole. He was born in 1857, where at a place known as Berdichev. The pronunciation becomes very difficult sometimes, and this is a town in Polish Ukraine. Then that time it was under the government of the Russians. His father, Joseph Conrad's father, who translated works by Victor Hugo and Shakespeare into Polish, was arrested by the Russians as a leader in the struggle for Polish independence and sent to a concentration camp in North Russia. And his mother, Conrad's mother, voluntarily accompanied her husband, and not being in good health, died 3 years later. Conrad's father returned to Poland, an embittered, weakened man, and he also died when Conrad was just 11 years old. Conrad was placed in the care of his uncle as he became an orphan for the next 6 years, during which time he read widely in French and German. दो language में उसने बहुत पढ़ा, that is French and German, after he lost both his mother and father. Fine. So students, always remember that whenever we start with any author, the details of the author is supposed to be known in brief or sometimes in details, because it helps you to locate and understand the upbringing, the field in which the particular poet, author, novelist is deciphering, going, and particularly then if that author is writing some, for example, in your syllabus, it is, I think, Lord Jim. He has written many novels of importance, but if we don't understand the details of Conrad, we will not be able to analyze his novels in a much better way. And the answers which we have to write will have certain things which will automatically be penned out when you have a lot of knowledge about himself. So second point which I'm going to relate here, to tell here, is that how Joseph Conrad decided his decision to become a sailor. So what I remember, students, in 1874, when Conrad was only 17 years of age, he left for a place known as Marseilles. He left for a place known as Marseilles for what? To become a sailor. By that time, he was knowing nothing about sea. He was knowing nothing about France beyond what he had read. There was no tradition actually of becoming a sailor or of seafaring in his family. And Conrad's ideas at that time about life at sea were probably only romantic and false, though these ideas shaped his outlook. So this is of importance, students, to know about his decision to become a sailor, though in his blood there was nothing like that of seafaring, about sea voyages, anything. So once you relate these things while writing the answers, it will help you a lot. Now, the third point which has to be taken here, that is his alienation, his loneliness, and his search for freedom. Loneliness and search for freedom. If we talk about Conrad's early experiences, so the early experiences of Conrad settled the pattern of his life, thereby providing a lot of themes which you used to see or which used to occur in the books which he wrote later on. Like many of his heroes, he was lonely. And because he was lonely, he was seeking independence. Now, if you go to his father's life had taught him that men have to make hard decisions and take a lot of risks for the things they are believing in, and that heroism often leads to tragedy. Heroism sometimes leads to death. Once you read his novels, students, you will find that many characters in his stories, they are sacrificing their happiness, or they are sacrificing even their lives for the ideals or for the people they have not yet understood. I still remember I studied somewhere, students, that once Conrad had taken his decision to go to the sea, he would not turn back. He cut himself from Poland, a country that offered him little happiness or little hope of freedom. But though he went to Marseilles and afterwards became a naturalized British citizen, he could never wholly become French or English. He remained throughout the rest of his life a man apart. His novels, thereby, as I am telling you right now, are about men who are set apart from their fellows. So this is about his loneliness and his search for freedom. Now, we will also talk about Joseph Conrad as a British sailor. As a British sailor. After 4 years in the French Merchant Navy, Conrad got a job on a British ship, and the name of the ship was the Mavis. In 1878, he first set foot on the English soil at a place known as Lowesoft. Lowesoft. And at this time, he was scarcely able to speak a word of the English language. But you know what happened? But he decided that if he were to be a sailor, he would be a British sailor. अगर वो sailor बनेगा तो British sailor बनेगा. And in 8 years, he obtained a third mate's ticket, then a mate's, and finally a master's. He made several voyages to eastern waters, that is Singapore, Borneo, and even the Gulf of Siam. And all these places served as the material of his novels. Now here, students, why I am teaching you all these things? Because his novels are indebted to his voyages, his experience. So if we don't know the basics of these things, we will not be able to entertain the questions properly. One trip up to the Congo led to the writing of his one of his best shorter novels. And you know what is the name of that novel? You might be knowing, Heart of Darkness. Heart of Darkness, which is a very popular novel by Joseph Conrad, that is One Trip to the Congo, which has all these things of the Congo in the novel The Heart of Darkness. These places are more than backgrounds to these stories. They have characters of their own, and the placing of an island affects actually the course of action. Now, a very important point comes to my mind here after discussing all these things as a sailor, as a seafarer, and all these things. That is, how how Joseph Conrad became such a big writer, and that too we can say from a sailor to a writer. Change from a sailor to a writer. This is of utmost importance. As I have just told you earlier, few minutes earlier, the Congo which we saw in the Heart of Darkness, the Congo stirred his imagination. But it also made him a victim of malarial attacks. He returned to sea, but his health could not withstand the hardships of his life. He had already begun to write by that time, though he had not so far seriously considered becoming a very professional writer. But you know one thing, with a great encouragement of John Galsworthy, he now turned to writing as a profession. And his first novel was, can you tell me students, Elmere's Folly. Elmere's Folly. The first novel by Joseph Conrad was accepted for publication and appeared in 1895. Thereafter, he continued to write despite some efforts to return to sea. In 1896, students, his next novel का नाम क्या था? An Outcast of the Islands. An Outcast of the 1896. It was published. And both these books, got a sympathetic reception from the critics, several of whom recognized the originality and genius of his new author.